A sharp click snapped me awake. The kitchen window latch. I looked over at the mudroom bench. Empty. The blanket lay on the floor like shed skin, and cold air came in through a gap I knew I'd never left open. Outside, the snow swallowed everything. It's our routine. Hers is the preparation. Mine is the drive. You know, she said this time, cinching the straps on my duffel like she was sealing a body bag. Better a cabin in the middle of nowhere than Vegas. She kissed my cheek, pressed a palm on my chest as if to feel that I was still warm, and told me to text when I got there. By the time I turned off the plowed road and onto the narrow forest track, the world had been rubbed down to two colors, white and dark green, and everything else was swallowed in between. The cabin is a one-story box tucked in a shallow dip, roof low, porch shallow, the kind of place that looks like it has spent its whole life bracing against wind. I know every bad habit it has. The kitchen window latch that never quite catches unless you lift the frame with your palm. That familiarity is why it took me a second to register what was wrong. The shovel I always store inside for winter was outside, leaned neatly against the porch post, its blade wet as if someone had just used it. The door opened with my key like it always did. The air inside was cold, but not dead cold. I stepped in and paused, listening. On the counter by the sink sat the propane lantern, the one we keep for outages, its glass globe coated with soot. Beside it was an empty soup bowl turned upside down on a dish towel, like someone had washed it and didn't want it to drip. The throw blanket my wife insists on folding into a perfect rectangle on the couch was bunched at one end, as if someone had pulled it up around their shoulders and then gotten up quickly. On the armrest was a single gray, cheap mitten, still damp at the cuff. I picked it up, and my fingers sensed warmth inside it that hadn't finished leaving. My first impulse was the sensible one. Back out, lock up, and drive until there were lights, people, and cell service. Instead, I did what I always do in that cabin. I tried to make it normal by doing normal things. I set my bags down. I started the stove. I stacked the wood. Then there was a knock. 3 careful taps, spaced evenly, as if the person on the porch didn't want to startle whatever might be inside. I took the taser from my bag and held it low against my thigh. I approached the door like it could swing open on its own, and when I pulled it back, the cold rushed in hard enough to sting my teeth. A woman was standing there, hunched inside a jacket too thin for the weather, hair plastered to her forehead by melt and sweat. Her cheeks were raw with wind, her eyelashes clumped with ice. "I saw the smoke," she said, voice rough. "If I stay out here, I'm not sure I make it to morning." "Where's your car?" I asked. "Off the bend." She nodded toward the trees, as if the storm would kindly reveal it for proof. I walked when it wouldn't start. "I've been walking a long time." "You come in," I said, and held up the taser so she could see it, so there would be no confusion. "But you stay right there, by the mudroom. You don't go past the stove. You don't go near the bedroom. Understood?" She nodded quickly. "Understood. Thank you." She entered like someone entering a church. Careful, almost reverent. I pointed to the bench in the mudroom. "Sit." She sat. I filled a pot with melted snow water, set it to heat, and opened a can of stew from my supplies without taking my eyes off her for long. I glanced over the kitchen window without meaning to. The frame was fogged at the corners from the heat, and the latch sat in its crooked, familiar position, always one small lift away from being properly caught. "Your window still doesn't close right," she said. My head whipped back to her. What? She blinked slowly like she hadn't meant to speak. It whistles, she murmured. In the wind. How do you know that? I asked. I've been in places like this, she said at last. You hear things when you're cold. You can stay until the storm eases, I said. But you sleep on that bench. Shoes on. You don't wander. If I hear you anywhere you shouldn't be, you'll be out in the snow. Do you understand me? She nodded. Yes. At some point, my own eyelids got heavy in spite of me. A sharp click snapped me awake. The kitchen window latch. I swung my gaze to the mudroom bench. Empty. The blanket I'd tossed over her shoulders lay on the floor like shed skin. The window was open a hand's width. Cold poured in through the gap, sharp and clean, carrying the smell of pine and distance. I checked the door. Still locked. Bolt still in place. Outside, snow was coming down thicker now. A steady fall that blurred the porch rail into a soft line. Beneath the kitchen window, a drift had piled up against the logs, like a crude stare. In the few seconds my eyes could make out detail, I saw a scuffed patch where someone had climbed down, and beyond it, faintly already filling in, a set of prints angling toward the tree line. Real. Human. Leaving. I packed without thinking. I shoved everything into the truck and drove out while the road still existed. When I finally hit pavement and the first bars of cell service showed up on my phone, I didn't call my wife right away. At home, my wife met me in the kitchen in her sweater and socks, relief softening her face the moment she saw me. See? She said, forcing lightness. Better than Vegas. Then she slid something across the table with 2 fingers. It was a small paper square, folded once, the kind she always tucks into my pocket on cabin mornings. A private joke, a tiny charm against the cold. I'd noticed it missing when I went for my keys in the dark. My wife watched me unfold it, and her smile weakened as I read the second line beneath her handwriting. Next year, don't come alone.
Like